Hello and welcome to today's Patient Spotlight. I am Brenda DeLauder, the Executive Director with the Canadian Spondyloarthritis Association. And at the CSA, we're committed to ensuring that no one living with spondyloarthritis ever feels alone, unseen, or misunderstood. And psoriatic arthritis, like many forms of spondyloarthritis, can show up in a deeply personal and in complex ways. And our goal is to share those real stories to educate and connect people across Canada and beyond. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Erin, an absolutely incredible advocate, mother, and someone who's lived with psoriatic arthritis since childhood, from feeling different as a young individual to powering through school to becoming a wife and mother of two. Erin has really transformed her challenges into fuel for advocacy. And she's here to share her story with honesty and with strength. And we know it will resonate with everyone watching. Erin, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And before we begin, I just wanted to note a disclaimer. The information provided by the Canadian Spondyloarthritis Association is not designed or intended to constitute medical advice or to be used for diagnosis purposes. Please consult your healthcare provider for guidance tailored to your needs and your own medical history. So let's begin. And when we start at the beginning, your journey with psoriatic arthritis, we might refer to that as PSA, um, uh, began when you were very young, but it wasn't an immediate diagnosis. Can you take us back to those early years? What were your symptoms like, and what made you feel different as a child?
Well, it started when I was, from what I remember, 9, when I started feeling symptoms. And it started with my ankle, my left ankle. It just wasn't feeling right. It was hurting a lot. It was giving out a lot. And I was complaining a lot to my mother about it. Yeah, she took me to many, many doctors. And yeah, they blew it off to be so many different things. Um, and then it started to turn into tiredness, pain in other areas. But the ankle's the one that kind of stuck the most, and the one that really made my mother feel like, okay, something's wrong here. And yeah, that was the first thing.
Hmm. And you mentioned that that you felt brushed off in essence by healthcare professionals. What was going through your mind during that time when you felt that you were being listened to? And I want to just state that there is a very long delay to diagnosis for spondyloarthritis. Can be up to 7 to 10 years and longer. And there are many reasons for that. And one is due to the lack of training on spondyloarthritis in the medical schools. And so, what was that like for you when you felt, not validated, I guess, in a way?
I felt like there was something wrong with me, maybe mentally. I don't know. I just felt that every doctor was telling me I was fine, or just saying that, I was overweight, I was clumsy, I had weak ankles, I just felt very different. All the other kids could keep up in gym class and do things, and I couldn't. And I felt as though maybe there was something wrong with me, not physically. I don't know. I was 9 to 14, so sometimes I brushed it off, and I think it was definitely a lot more frustrating for my mom than it was for me at that point. But yeah, it was definitely frustrating for me as well, for sure. Going into these doctors and having them, just keep saying, nothing's wrong, everything's fine, there's nothing wrong with her. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's definitely frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, I can only imagine. Um, and as I understand it, when you were 14, you were diagnosed at the age of 14. And can you tell us about what, how what that item what occurred to help
Mhm.
trigger that diagnosis?
Yeah, so my stepfather had got to a point where he had had enough with all of the doctors that we were going to, and he finally said, "Go to my family doctor." And I did. And the minute we started talking about the symptoms with him, he took one look at my nails, and I had nail polish on. So he asked the nurse to go get some acetone, took the nail polish off, and immediately held my hand up and showed my mother the pitting on my nails
Mm.
and said, I immediately said, "I know what this is." And that was it. We had a diagnosis. It was that easy. It wasn't easy road, but it was that simple. Just some pitting on the nails, and that was it. We had a diagnosis.
Hmm. And at that point, you finally had a name, right? So, what did you think when you heard this term of the disease?
To be honest, I was 14. I didn't really, I went to school the next day as if nothing had happened. I guess it was nice to have a name and know that I wasn't going crazy, that I actually did have something. I was different from other kids for a reason. But I was 14. I really don't remember being that affected
Mhm.
until I got a bit older. Then things started to kind of hit me a little bit more.
Mhm.
But at that point, life just kind of went on.
Yeah, incredible. And so, despite so many challenges that you faced, you remained determined to really carve out a meaningful path for yourself, especially when it came to school and working with kids. And high school we know can be hard, can be hard enough on its own. But when you're dealing with joint pain and inflammation and fatigue, what helped you get through those tough school years, especially physically?
I had a great school. They were very understanding, very helpful. We made sure to let them know the moment I got diagnosed, which was about halfway through grade nine. Uh, they were very understanding and very accommodating. They allowed me, I took two transit buses to get to school every day.
Mhm.
If I was late, they were okay with it. If I needed extra time to get up and down the stairs, they were okay with it. If I needed accommodations regarding chairs or anything like that, or assemblies that were sitting on the floor or anything like that, I will say they were a great school. They were very accommodating with everything that I needed. And I didn't have too many struggles in high school. Thankfully, I got really lucky.
Hmm. That's great. And I know that you took a co-op course in high school that really helped to shape your future. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was able to do co-op in a kindergarten class in grade 11. And I kind of already knew I wanted to work with kids, not quite sure in what way. But yeah, that showed me that I definitely wanted to work with young kids. And it was just a really rewarding experience because I guess when you're in high school, you're going through all the classes and I'm struggling on top of it. It's not necessarily the most rewarding because you're just doing what you're being told to do. But with co-op, it was very rewarding. I felt like I really got something out of it. It felt very worth it in the end. And also, it was just the extra buses to get there and the extra work it took to work with these kids. It was one of those where even though there was days that I would come home in a lot more pain than usual, it was just so rewarding and so worth it that it just made it all just, I don't know, very valuable to me. I'm very happy I was able to do that.
Hmm. And, being diagnosed at a young age, in teen years, there is a transition that's required, right? Transitioning from youth during high school years into adulthood,
Mhm.
and finding that independence while also managing a chronic illness. Can you tell us a little bit about what that transition looked like for you?
Yeah, for me, the transition was, I guess, very short. I finished high school when I was 18. I met my future husband when I was 19, and I had my first child at 20. So for me, it was a very quick process of kind of being pushed into adulthood. But yeah, it's interesting when you go from, living at home and, you don't necessarily need to do everything yourself and all of that to then, yeah, being on your own. And I thankfully had a really, really amazing person who ended up becoming my husband, who just even to this day is one of the best advocates and the best helpers with this that I could ever ask for.
Mhm. And from a transition perspective, if you were to share some advice or insight just based on your own experience for someone, transitioning from youth to adulthood, that means, managing your own medications. That means going into your doctor's office solo, right? And not necessarily having a parent or a guardian or an adult with you. If you had some advice to give to someone who is just transitioning into that adulthood and self care, what could you offer?
My doctor had a policy where pretty much from the second appointment on, he wouldn't allow my mother to come to the appointments. Of course, at 14, I at first didn't really understand it. I am forever grateful now for him doing that.
Mhm.
It gave me that sense of me having to deal with my own disease and the medications and the choices and the responsibilities. Yes, very young, but I got used to it. So it wasn't a huge transition for me when I turned 18 to do that all on my own. And I wouldn't necessarily say I recommend, if you're 14, going into these appointments by yourself, but I would say, as a young person, the earlier that you can do those things on your own, whether it be going to these appointments or just doing those things, medication wise on your own, start doing it then because it really helps the transition point because you're not immediately like, oh my God, now I'm doing everything by myself. You're able to transition a heck of a lot easier. And that's what I would say is try to do things as much as you can on your own as soon as you can to try to, make it easier.
Hmm. And that's quite scary for a lot of people, right? That's
Yeah.
that's a scary place to be in, right? Where, and not for everyone, but
Mhm.
you're managing a disease, and do you have any advice to offer for any fear or hesitation around that?
You just got to jump in. You just got to do it. You will always, unfortunately, have the disease, and you just have to jump in and do it. And the more you do it on your own, and the more knowledge that you can arm yourself with early, is what's going to help you the most. Is just jumping right in there and doing it.
Hmm. Excellent. Now, your journey also includes, love, partnership, motherhood, and with psoriatic arthritis, those milestones require careful planning and strength, and balance. And, you said that you met your husband when you were 19, and together you navigated some difficult medication decisions, especially around planning for pregnancy. We have a series on parenting and planning for pregnancy on the CSA website. But I'm wondering if you could walk us through that process.
Yeah, so when we decided that we wanted to look into having kids, we both went to my doctor together and asked the question of how do we do it? And he recommended that I go off of the methotrexate for 4 to 6 months. And I went off of it for 6 months because I wanted to be extra safe. But yeah, that was what was recommended to us, and that was our journey. And it was really hard. The 6 months, I was in a lot of pain, being off all of my medications. But the relief that came with becoming pregnant was definitely worth it, and obviously, it was worth it to have my children. So.
Hmm. And, I'm sure that there was a lot of fear behind, removing that medication for a short period of time. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. You're going into it blind. You have no idea really what's going to come. And yeah, it was scary. And it did get to a point by 5, 6 months in that I was ready to throw in the towel and I'm not doing this anymore. You also don't know what new joints could possibly become affected or what complications could arise. I think it just comes down to how much you're willing to risk to have the children that you want to have. And I know for a fact I wanted to be a mother. That was my number one thing in life. And I knew I was going to do it no matter what. And yeah.
Yeah, that determination is so admirable. Do you recall why your doctor had indicated taking a break from the medication was important?
Yeah, from what I understand, methotrexate can cause birth defects, abnormalities, and even miscarriages, abortions, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, he just mentioned that at least 4 months for sure. He recommended six, so that's what I did. I did six. I got pregnant with my daughter after 7 months. My son took a bit longer. It took 16 months, so I know for a fact everything was out of my system for those. But yeah, that's from what I understand.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And now, as a mom of two, how do you balance raising children while still managing psoriatic arthritis in day to day? I know some people experience flares, but that balance and the disease management and carving out the time for that management, how do you do it?
When they were younger, it was definitely a harder experience. I'm thankful that the way it worked out, my children are 5.5 years apart. So it wasn't like having a bunch of little kids wrangling around the house, to wrangle. But it was still hard no matter what. Obviously, there are times when you're taking them up for their nap and you're carrying them and you're having a flare, and you just have to power through it. And once they're down for that nap, then you can have your rest. Then you can take your time to, get yourself back, and have that. What would I want to say? To get yourself back to where you can be the mom that you need to be. And yeah, it's honestly just doing what you need to do for yourself. Your kids are going to remember the experiences that they shared with their mom. They're not going to remember the times that mom had to rest for an extra 10 minutes or an hour or half the day, or they're not going to remember those things. My kids now, they remember, when I took them to the movies, when I, sat and played with them or played board games, or they don't remember when mom needed to take a half an hour rest or while I put on a movie or things like that. Um, they're going to remember the things that really, really matter. So you really just need to listen to your body and do what's best for you.
Mhm. A lot of we hear from a lot of individuals how they felt guilt in prioritizing themselves, their self care, their self love. And can you talk a little bit about how to get through those emotions so that you can prioritize, so you can be your best for others?
I mean, there's the guilt. There's the mom guilt, and I don't think it matters whether you have a disease or not. There's always the mom guilt. I mean, yeah, I think it's probably more mom guilt added on when you have a disease that you need to think of yourself more than maybe others would. And yeah, I mean, sometimes I don't think there's a magic. You can't snap your fingers and get rid of it. Sometimes you do just have to deal with the fact that there is going to be that mom guilt. But you got to remember that, like I said, the kids aren't going to remember that. And you got to do what you have to do for yourself to be the greatest mom and person and wife that you can be for your family. And if that requires, an extra rest or whatever it is that you need, you just have to go with that and not feel guilty because that's going to make you, the best mom, the best wife in the end. And I think sometimes, yeah, you just may have to sit in the guilt, but I mean, it's not something that's going to necessarily go away, but it's something that's needed. You have to do what you have to do for yourself.
Yes, that whole self love, self advocacy, and prioritization of your health and listening to your body are all very important elements that we hear from our community. So even with this strong foundation, chronic illness can throw curveballs, as we know. In your case, that included a new complication called uveitis. I'm wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about that.
That experience was very hard for me. I was 30 years old. I was older than when I got my first diagnosis. That one definitely hit me really, really hard. Having doctors know, not having any answers when I asked as to prognosis, how it could eventually affect me in the future. Reading the horror stories, I definitely fell down that rabbit hole with that one. That one definitely hit me really, really hard. I will admit, I think I'm 8 years later, I'm still coming to terms with it and dealing with it. And I don't think I'm quite fully there. I don't know if I ever will be when it comes to accepting it, but yeah, that one definitely threw me for a loop.
Hmm. And I'm wondering if you could share how uveitis was explained to you.
I was told that it was inflammation of the eye, basically, in so many other words, arthritis of the eye. It originally showed up in one eye, and some people are very lucky to have it only ever stay in one eye. For me, it jumped to the second within days. Um, it's uh, it's yeah. Basically what was explained to me was it can cause different levels of sight loss, and it's different for everybody. It's also different depending on your type. I thankfully have anterior, which is one of the, I guess, less severe ones. But yeah, when I was asking my doctor kind of what the prognosis looked like, there's really no prognosis that you can, look at a textbook and say this is what it is. You could go blind in a year, you can go blind in 30 years, you can lose various levels of sight along the way, and that's kind of just the way it is.
Hmm. And uveitis is closely connected to spondyloarthritis. So, for those who are diagnosed with spondyloarthritis, there is a section on our website that speaks to uveitis specifically. So, when did you start to feel like yourself again?
Ah, I don't know if I ever really did when it comes to the uveitis part of it. Like I said, I'm kind of still 8 years later, reeling with it to one extent. But it is to a point now where I can go, days and weeks at a time with forgetting that I have it, especially when I'm not treating a flare, when I'm in between appointments. I've been very lucky to be in remission now for over a year. And I find myself definitely, forgetting that I have it most days. But when you're going, that appointment is coming, and see, for me, I don't have any symptoms, so I never know. I go into the appointment, they look and they see if it's there or not, if it's popped up again. I'm pretty much okay now until I have the appointment, and then when you're going through a flare, it's eye drops all the time, and it can be anywhere from 24 a day, and it's definitely a lot. And like I said, I can't say I'm necessarily feeling like myself again. I think this is more of a new normal for me. I don't know if I'll ever feel like myself the way I did before I was diagnosed with uveitis, but I'm creating a new normal now, and I'm good with that. I'm happy with that, and I'm happy with where I am.
Mm, yeah. I know that you've said in the past that PSA doesn't define you, and that is such an inspirational statement. Now, has psoriatic arthritis taught you anything about yourself? Like, has it shaped who you are today?
Yeah, I'm strong, and I know that I can handle anything. And I think getting the diagnosis of uveitis 8 years ago would have been a heck of a lot harder had I not been already dealing with this. I feel like I can handle anything. I feel like I'm resilient, and like I said, I'm strong, and I have been able to handle this and live with this and make a very happy and productive life for myself. I just turned 39 a couple days ago, and I'm very happy with where I am. And I just feel like, yeah, maybe it doesn't define me, it's part of my story. And it's a big part of my story, and it has shaped where my journey and my story has gone. But yeah, I think I can pretty much handle anything, and then I'm strong.
You are strong. Um, uh, what message do you have for others? And maybe for young people or new moms who might feel overwhelmed or misunderstood.
Yeah, as a new mom, you're always going to feel overwhelmed, but yeah, when you're dealing with something like this, it's even more on top of that. I would say definitely, if you can, build yourself a village, get the people around you that really understand you and you trust, and that understand what you're going through, and definitely rely on them. Don't feel like you have to be super mom. I definitely made that mistake more than once. Ask for help when you need it, and try not to get too overwhelmed. If you feel like you're getting that way, ask for help. Do what you need to do. Um, yeah, just listen to yourself, listen to your body, listen to what you need as well. Make sure you don't ignore yourself. Yes, you're a mom, or you're a someone who's just been diagnosed and may have people relying on you, but you got to listen to yourself. You got to listen to your body. You got to do what's best for you, because if not, you're no good for anybody else if you can't do what you need to do. So I would just say, yeah, listen to your body, listen to yourself, and ask for help.
What gives you hope when you think about your future and the future of others living with spondyloarthritis, psoriatic arthritis, uveitis?
I feel like medical advances are, getting better. And I do, from what I've heard, I do feel like, even the time for diagnosis is getting a little better. And I think that just needs to continue. There needs to be a lot more research. There needs to be a lot more training and teaching about this disease, so that doctors will recognize it a lot faster than 7 to 10 years. I think that it gets in, and organizations like this, with webinars like this and stuff like that, they definitely give me hope as well for the future, because there was nothing like this. When I was first diagnosed 25 years ago, I would have loved to have had a community like this to, ask questions and rely on. And I think that the work that's being done here is really, really going to help.
Erin, thank you so much for sharing your story, your truth with us today in such a transparent and open and powerful way. And you've shown us that in the face of chronic pain, chronic disease, unpredictability, setbacks, there's always space for growth. And you use the term resilience, and I love that term. Um, so, to everyone watching, I hope Erin's story reminded you that that you are more than your diagnosis. Your diagnosis doesn't have to define you, just like Erin has said, and that there is a support community here ready to have your back when you need it. Spondyloarthritis is a disease that impacts more than 500,000 Canadians. And it includes axial spondyloarthritis, psoriatic arthritis, juvenile, entropathic arthritis, uveitis, and other forms. And so it is the most common, most prominent form of inflammatory arthritis globally. And so when we have a community like this, when we have resources, when we have stories like this to share, we're really building this community of people, of peer support, and of advocacy. So please visit our website, join the community if you haven't already, and know that you are not alone. And Erin, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.